Hi and good morning. I'm here with Chris Thomas. Now Chris Thomas has a big task ahead of him, especially next week, because he's the CEO of Transplant Australia, the whole continent, but they are the hosts for the World Transplant Games starting next week. And Chris, it's lovely to meet you, and thanks for making the time.
Thanks, Anil. It's great to meet you and hear of your adventures, what you've been achieving over the last few months.
And Chris, where do you live?
I live just north of Sydney, about an hour and a half north of Sydney. And so I've been coming across this beautiful continent for the last 3 or 4 years in preparation for the World Games. It's a big country. It's about 4,300 kilometres.
Yeah, I see myself. I've done my route map now, and it's almost 15,000 kilometres of driving.
Yeah. Well,
just here.
That's called a groin over there, that little point of the rocks. 9 years ago, I left that particular groin. It's a funny name, Groyne, and I rode my bicycle back to Sydney. So 4,315.
Wow, you're quite the adventurer.
Kilometres.
Now tell me, are you a donor or a recipient?
I'm neither, fortunately.
Still,
I haven't.
Good on you.
I haven't had to be, but I had a cousin who had a kidney transplant,
okay.
and my mother was a donor. So I have a connection through a variety of areas, but I really became involved in Transplant Australia because I thought they needed help to promote organ donation in Australia.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, and we've been doing a really great job over the last 10 years.
Now you picked this spot to meet me here.
Yes.
And what's so special about this spot?
Well, behind us is the LIFE project, which was set up in about 4 years ago, and it's a project commemorating donors and recipients as well, and they're looking out to sea. It's a very reflective piece, and it's a really nice project that's been put together specifically for organ donation, and that's why we've actually put it on the front cover of our event guide, which you'll see during the games. Yeah.
And for Transplant Australia, what's your dream?
Well, the dream is that we don't exist. Because there are enough organs available for everyone who needs them. We doubled our rate of organ donation in Australia over a 10-year period, up to about 2019. Then the pandemic got in the way.
Yeah.
And we haven't recovered to where we need to be. But, we've been doing these types of events for 30, 40 years. So we're at a different life cycle, I think, to where your family and your heritage is from, but it's just wonderful. I wrote a lot of stories about transplantation in 1984 when we did the first heart transplants.
Yeah.
We had a guy here called Victor Chang.
Okay.
And those, it was real news then. We were counting the heart transplants that were being conducted. So that sort of newsworthiness of transplantation in Australia has sort of passed. But what's left are these rich human interest stories of people who were at death's door and have been given this chance to live again. And I think that's how we're able to continue to create the media interest. And you've been interviewed this week, and we've got lots more interviews coming up. We've got some stories coming out of Sydney now, and it's all happening.
Well, we're both working towards the same goal. We want to live in a world where no one dies waiting for an organ.
Exactly.
And we're approaching it differently, but at some point we intersect, and I hope we can have that discussion. Now, I have a question. I've always asked this question, and you're the right person, because you're also involved in the WTG Federation, right?
I'm the president of the Federation. Up
Correct.
until Friday week. That's when my presidency finishes after
It's
8
every
years.
Year? Oh, it's every 8 years?
2 terms of 4 years each. And so,
Okay.
I'll be concluding that presidency, and we've seen a real rejuvenation, total overhaul of the World Federation over the last year. And that's reflected in the fact that we've got, I think, about 40 or 50 people from India coming to these World Games.
Yes.
The numbers
30.
we've had,
30.
the numbers that we've had in the past have only been about 4 or 5.
Right, the last one had 13.
13, okay.
And now we're 30 now.
Yeah. So, well, my numbers are a little bit fuzzy, but
no, the goal is 100.
But the intent is there.
But the question I really had for you, and I did ask it in the last games, donors.
Yes.
I find living donors, the only ones who can participate in the games, other than donor families, of course. I've come from the view, obviously I'm looking at it as a donor, and I needed the inspiration to go ahead with the task of trying to save my brother. There are lots of them who don't have enough of it. I wouldn't say they don't have enough love, but they just don't have enough inspiration or loss of fear.
Yeah, it's a big
big deal,
decision.
right? Yes. Now, a thing like the World Transplant Games, if we saw more donors participate in strenuous athletic activity, would that not inspire more donors? Because most donors are worried about themselves. Yeah. They're not really worrying about, oh, I'm going to save another life. That's a very altruistic approach. But if you look at it from the least common denominator, it's about themselves.
I mean, the World Federation is on a journey. I can stand here today to say I'm really proud that I was the president who actually opened the pathway for donors to participate in the games in 2017. And that wasn't an easy, you know, we've got wonderful transplant recipients, but across the board they were saying, hey, isn't it about the transplant recipients? And my argument was, guys, we've had 40 years of showcasing what the recipients can do. It's now time we opened it up to the family that is transplantation. So in Malaga, in Spain in 2017, was the first time living donors and donor families were able to participate. We repeated that in Newcastle. We've got it here. So we're on a journey. I don't think we've got enough donors participating at the moment.
Right, because in my journeys, I have obviously spoken to many donors, and I'm trying to tell them, hey, you should come here, and then if we show numbers, they'd be taking it more seriously. But besides being a number game, just philosophically, no donors, no recipient.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you inspire more living donors? And today I'm seeing it worldwide with most organizations who have focused mostly on cadaver donations are now also starting to think about living donations, because you have to meet the demand, and it's coming from the living donors, especially kidney and liver, which account for 80% of all transplants.
But you come from, you know, the wonderful thing about the World Transplant Games is that we're all united by this common bond, but we come from different cultures, different backgrounds. We would have many doctors in Australia that would say that in that perfect world, they're corellas. They're a beautiful bird. They can get in a bit of plague proportion, but they're corellas. I like them.
They make a racket also.
They make a racket. But we would have many doctors in Australia say that, you know, in a perfect world, you wouldn't take a perfect organ out of a perfect person and give it to someone else. You would wait for the deceased organ donation program to be able to meet, you know, the demand. So that's a different philosophy and a different approach. And, you know, I feel it's up to the individual to make that decision based on good education.
Yeah, information.
You know, and we have so many beautiful living donors, you know, coming to the games here. Yes, we need more, but we all come from a different, you know, philosophical background and a different, you know, medical ethical background as well. It's not clear cut.
Yeah, but this is for already people who've done it. It's done.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
casting the spotlight on what they have done.
Correct. And now that would be
encourages
information.
more.
Exactly. That would just be information for those on the sidelines, waiting or watching to see, hey, listen, I have somebody on dialysis, but they seem okay, so maybe I'd be okay.
But this is why your role as an ambassador for living donation.
I take it seriously.
17 countries. You know, it's just so, you know, important, because you can tell the story better than what I can.
Yes, and
you are a living donor. You have saved, you know, your brother's life.
And if there are 300 living donors running, or jumping, or throwing, or doing the cycling part, the triathlon. I mean, I wish I could do the triathlon here, because I don't have the option. But a lot of us, in fact, there is a group in America which you well know about called the Kidney Donor Athletes.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of them I speak to, they're all donors, right? There's about 900 of us in that group. Yeah. The one common thing about why they're not here is there's not enough to compete in. Yeah. We want to show that we can do the most strenuous things, like a triathlon is quite strenuous, or swimming. I know there's a 50-meter swim for the donors now, which is great. is there a view in the future that you would increase the level of competition?
In Malaga we had 5 sports. I think here we've got it's either 11 or 12.
Correct, I see that.
And I see that we continue to increase it. We have our sports administrators that get worried that some of the sports will be overwhelmed and there won't be enough time in the day. There won't be enough courts, there won't be enough, rinks, whatever the sport is.
So it's the logistics.
Yeah, it's a logistic thing that holds it back. But you're talking to the man who's made it happen.
Right, and I'm going to talk to the man who's passing on the baton.
Yeah. And I'll be passing on the baton to the new board of trustees.
Okay.
And you can...
Who's the president now?
Well, I'm the president now.
I mean, when you...
We don't know.
Oh, you haven't elected yet.
So there'll be an election on Thursday.
Got it.
So...
What's your message to living donors?
About
the competition here, what to look
Well, my
forward
main
to?
message to living donors is to say thank you. That's the most important thing.
In the context of the World Transplant Games of the future.
Come and participate. Continue to promote the cause. Get that spotlight, on what you've been able to achieve in your life. Because, in advertising, testimonial advertising is the most important. Yes. And you're the testimony that this works. And you can, light the lives of others, which is our message for these games.
So I'm going to put some words in your mouth.
Okay.
Will there be, or will you champion the cause of more competitive sports for living donors in future games?
My presidency and my term on the World Federation finishes Friday week, and I step down because I become the feather duster, if you know that expression.
Yes.
But I will do all I can between now and Friday week to champion that cause.
Championing, even I'm sure as the past president, you're still on the board.
No,
you don't.
I could have had that opportunity,
but
I decided that there's nothing as X as an X.
Correct.
I have put my heart and soul into this.
8 years is a long time.
2 years prior as treasurer.
Yeah.
Been on the board since 2009. Since the last games. So the last games in Australia was in 2009.
That was
on the Gold Coast.
Right, yes.
Which is why Gordon is taking the baton.
Driving, yes.
Riding. And so bookending my role on the board. It's not about me, I've created the Hall of Fame.
It's your, it's your legacy too.
Well, thank you. But so I started in 2009, finished in 2023. But yeah, I think we should continue to champion that cause. I will introduce you to the future leadership of the trustees, and you can make a case for that. The case is already made by what we're seeing. Correct. We just need more.
Well, that was Chris Thomas.
Thanks, Anil.
Chris Thomas, the president of the World Transplant Games Federation and CEO of Transplant Australia, which you will continue, right?
Yeah, that role continues.
And we're hoping, and I'm going to commit on behalf of Rotary, that there will be a holy alliance between Transplant Australia and the Rotary of Australia. Stay tuned for that.